What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about things Canadians want Americans to know. And you know what? I'm American. I'm here. And I am ready to receive this information for the sake of all Americans out there. I am ready for this. I'm not exactly sure what these facts about Canada that Canadians really want Americans to know are. I feel like I'm about to be imbued with some sort of ancient Canadian wisdom or something. I will do my best to be responsible with this information and use it for good only. Or it's going to be a bunch of stuff like Americans, we don't live in igloos. And I'll be like, oh, you liar, stop lying to me. Don't tell me fibs. Why are you lying to me about the igloos? Tell me where they are. And I don't know, we'll just get into a big argument over that. Hopefully that doesn't happen, you know? But honestly, let's take a look at these facts that Canadians really want Americans like myself to know. So, number one, A can be used interchangeably with huh. Oh, the proper usage of the term A. Very complicated. It's still a bit confusing to me at times. Americans always interject A into a sentence in the most awkward way when mimicking us. Yet they always have the same speech patterns. Oh, the stupid American, when we do our imitation of like a stereotypical Canadian. Yeah, it is like, I don't know. Canadians must find it pretty annoying or offensive, especially when we're like, hey, do you want to go to Timmy's, You know, it's just like, clearly, I don't know. I'm afraid some Americans actually don't know how completely wrong that is, sadly. More specifically, A is a stand-in for right. You know what I mean? Yes, it's a prompt for if you want others to agree. It's also like a way to turn stuff into questions, right? Like, nice day, Like, you know, very casual. I like it. Very useful kind of term. And yes, Americans, for the most part, have no idea like what it's used for and overdo it and don't understand it. So I agree with that one for sure. What else do we have here? There is one random person in every Canadian town who is exempt from goose attacks? Really? No one knows who this person is. Citizenship has nothing to do with it. One random person in every Canadian town exempt from goose attacks. Obviously, they have been blessed by the spirit, the goose spirit, at birth. And yes, they must wear the crown of the goose, at least inside, in spirit. And they are protected, and they are one with the geese. That is such a specific thing. Do I, as an American, do I need to know this? If I went to some Canadian town randomly, could I, be randomly selected as the one with the geese? Like, part of their pact? Or find out if you're the blessed one. Go meet a Canadian goose up close. Well, now I just feel like this is some kind of trick to get a bunch of unsuspecting Americans to run up to a flock of geese thinking that we are the chosen geese one and get nipped and bitten by those little goose teeth, you know? Suspiciously sounds like what a goose would write. Squint's eyes. Yeah, I think this person's trying to just get Americans to run up to Canadian geese. I'm on to you. Okay, I gotta keep my guard up here a little bit. Man, it's dangerous. What else do we have? It is a very, very big country, Canada, with not a lot of infrastructure. Please plan trips accordingly. Not a lot of infrastructure. Well, there's at least that, huge Canadian highway, right? That road that spans across, Canada east to west, I think. Isn't that a thing? That's pretty good. But yeah, Americans really don't understand how gigantic Canada is. And even more so, Americans don't understand, how different parts of Canada are much, much less populated. So I would think you're definitely going to run into issues like if you're needing to use public transportation or the infrastructure that's available, because you get much less populated, like as you go north in Canada, I believe. So yeah, that is very important if you're traveling Canada. That would take a lot of Americans by surprise, for sure. Very much. Canada is like the second biggest country in the world, right? If you're going to use cash in Canada, please bring Canadian dollars. Well, yeah, of course, of course. Sorry if this sounds shocking, but even with their higher value, Canadians don't want your stinking US dollars. Yeah, no, of course. Like, oh man, if an American tried to spend US dollars, like the bills, in Canada, to me that would almost be like, that would be like arrogant. Like, just assuming you can go to another culture, another country, and just, especially if Americans are like, well, it's an American dollar. What do you mean you don't take an American dollar? It's better than your little fake money. You know, that I could see, God forbid, I could see some Americans slipping into that kind of thought. Yeah, that's terrible. People in developing countries might start salivating at the sight of a US greenback, but we won't. In fact, it's a pain in the arse for us to exchange. Yeah, US dollars are not legal tender in Canada. I would assume this, but I would not put it past American tourists to spend American US dollars and think, "Hey, it's US money. It's good everywhere." Yeah, that's really disrespectful. Um, Please don't be upset when businesses will refuse to honor the exchange rate. Yeah, you kind of deserve a penalty for showing up in Canada with not Canadian money. Shoes off inside, you ogres. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think this kind of depends on, it's like family to family, like also from region to region. Most Americans I know would really, really appreciate you taking your shoes off inside. But I don't know what it's like in Canada, but there are exceptions where there are families I've met where it really doesn't matter to them. Like they wear their shoes inside. I don't know why you'd want to get your home dirty like that, and it's really not very much effort to take your shoes off. And if you're at someone else's house, it's pretty disrespectful to go marching around in your dirty shoes. So I actually really agree with this one. All Americans should do this, but yes, some of us are ogres. It's true. There's some ogres here. What else do we have? These are good. Things Canadians want Americans to know. I'm learning a lot here today, and some of this is pretty critical information. I may even become leader of the geese one day, I've found out. We invented basketball. According to those part of our heritage commercials, which I take as gospel. That's right, I learned about this at some point. Basketball. Basketball is like something Americans definitely like value as an American cultural cornerstone, American sport, and we think we're the best at it. Funny enough, it wasn't invented in the United States. It was invented in Canada, and that would absolutely shock Americans. Like, that is the last thing they would expect to not be created in America. A Canadian invented the game while he was in the United States. There, that kind of explains a lot of the confusion, doesn't it? That really explains it, actually. It was a Canadian, though, but not in Canada. Oh man, that does make it confusing. Now I kind of get why people are confused. Nova Scotia is not an island. Cape Breton Island is an island and part of Nova Scotia. I need to see a picture of Nova Scotia. I'm sorry, but I am not up, I can't really visualize it by memory. As sad as that is. I don't know. It kind of looks like an island to me. Oh no, this is why it's something that Canadians want Americans to know. So this is not an island? So he says Cape Breton Island, which I see here. Cape Breton Island? Yeah, island. But then here, the rest of Nova Scotia. How is this not an island? Is it attached? Wait a minute. Zoom in. Zoom in. Oh my gosh. It's attached. It's freaking attached. But it's to New Brunswick. And when you zoom out, it looks like an island. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It kind of looks like an island. Oh gosh, this one was critical. This was actually something I needed to know. Very good. Thank you. I had a teacher in the US insist it was an island because she took a ferry there. Like 100% you took a ferry. I've taken a ferry there, but I've also driven off of it. That's kind of the proof, huh? That you've driven out of Nova Scotia. That would kind of be irrefutable, but this US teacher insists that because she was in a ferry in Nova Scotia, has to be an island. I don't know. Some Americans, I'm sorry, kind of hopeless. Some of us are beyond saving, unfortunately. What else do we have here? The wildfires here are so large that it's not possible to extinguish them. Even if all the firefighters and firefighting equipment in the world helped, it wouldn't make a dent. I mean, this is actually very important, I think, for Americans to understand, because sadly, there's honestly been Americans, I think, like in New York and other places, when all of that smoke hit America in the Northeast, a lot of Americans got like mad at Canadians, or like it's absurd. It has to do with Americans not understanding how the wildfires start, how easy it is for them to start, and how difficult it is to stop them. Like it's an uphill battle, and it's honestly we should be sympathizing and helping Canada. There's people out here, not a lot, I like to think, but there's Americans out here who are in fact instead like mad, which is just sad. The point of wildfires is to protect towns, infrastructure, parks. Yeah, it's really about helping everything survive, not necessarily eliminating wildfires forever. That's impossible, basically, but doing what you can. Canadian bacon is not Canadian. Canadian bacon is so strange because apparently it's this thing that exists in America, and it's a film, by the way. But no one in America like eats it. Like I can't even remember the last time I had Canadian bacon. So yes, this is a valuable fact that I can see why Canadians want Americans to understand. Canadian bacon is not Canadian. You take no ownership over it. But I gotta say, as an American, trust me, we are not out here eating Canadian bacon very much or talking about it. I would forget it completely existed if not for comments like this. So yeah, I don't know how that all started. Anyway, very controversial stuff here. Canadian bacon. What else do Canadians want Americans to know? Do not bring skis and snowboards with you when you drive across the border in July. Why? Because July is too early? Like, Americans go to Canada thinking it's always winter, always snowing, and then they even try to bring their skis and snowboards in July, and it's silly and unnecessary? Is that what I'm hearing here? This is not a joke. I've had it happen. Wow. Mostly true when I got back from Whistler, where my daughter was skiing on the glacier, so it can be done only in a limited capacity? Oh, there's some parts of Canada where you can ski and snowboard as early as July, but I see what they're saying here. Americans need to understand that it's not permanent snow and winter all over Canada all year, which I genuinely think a lot of Americans do believe that it's always cold and always snowing in Canada. Seriously, as crazy as that sounds. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Americans are lugging their skis over, only to be very disappointed. It's a good one. What else? No, I do not know John from Toronto. Because Americans think all Canadians know each other for some reason. If we ever bump into a Canadian, I haven't experienced this personally, but this is such an American thing for sure. To be like, because Americans rarely travel outside of our country, Americans are not exposed to other cultures or other countries or traveling very much. We travel within the United States mostly. So when we bump into someone from another country and we know someone from there, we have such a small concept of the world. Like, we think the world and countries are so small because we don't know anything about them. Americans will be like, do you know John? John is Canadian, and you're Canadian. You must know him. Like, it's so silly. It's so silly. Oh my gosh. True story. My friend's brother was from Canada, was on a European cruise. My friend's bro said, let me guess, you know Bob from Canada. They both laughed, and the guy said, I actually do know Bob from Canada. Oh no. Oh no, this is never going to end with stories like that. What else do we have here? Things Canadians want Americans to know about Canada. The music ride is great PR. Your laws don't apply here. Please govern yourselves accordingly. The music ride is great PR. What is the music ride? The music ride? What's the music ride? Does it have something to do with Mounties? The music ride, Canada. A symbol of tradition, honor, and pride. The music ride is a Canadian icon recognized home and abroad. It's a tour. It's some kind of Canadian musical tour. What? Wait, what? They perform internationally? What's the music ride? What? It's the Royal Mounted Police? It's Mounties doing some kind of performance for the entertainment of Americans. This is sick. No, I'm just kidding. No, wow. There's actually Canadian exposure, like Canadian culture, like traveling around, like in America too, putting on these performances. That's awesome. I didn't know about the music ride. All right, cool. That's a good one. I never even knew that was a thing. Interesting. I did need to know that. You've actually come to another country. Oh boy, yeah. Things Americans need to know about Canada, or sorry, things Canadians want Americans to know is you have come to Canada. You have come to a different country. You are outside of the United States. That can be a lot to process, like for an American. Especially, like I said, we don't travel outside the US very much. So it's hard to kind of shake that feeling. Shake that, I don't know, that habit, you could say, of thought. No matter how much we resemble, how much we sound like Americans, we are not. We have different laws, customs to be aware of. Oftentimes, okay. And then Americans will complain about Canadian laws and stuff that they break and try to get away with it. And we walk among you. Oh no, this is getting too scary. Canadians walk among us. Where? What? Okay. Got a little scared there for a second now. Yeah, Americans, like, that's really sad. Like, if Americans are going to Canada and like, well, the law in America is like this. I didn't break the law. It's like, no, you're in Canada, have the Canadian money, abide by the Canadian laws, and remember, Canadians walk among us. No, that was a funny comment. But anyway, this was fantastic. These were actually super helpful and actually really informative about Canadian culture. These were actually good facts that, as an American, I'm genuinely happy to have learned. So, I was afraid some of this might be negative, talking about how dumb Americans are. And there wasn't that much of that, to be honest. It was respectful and honestly useful information about Canada, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video as well, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment, perhaps with what you would like Americans to know about Canada. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canadian culture and stuff about Canada that I have never learned before or seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.